incredibly vibrant poster from here, and it's a thriving business. It doesn't look like this very thing. Trust me, it's as busy as a kitchen in a famous diner at lunchtime. It's always lunchtime. Keep going, Jack. Good morning, Courtney. Good morning, nice folks. Welcome, y'all.
Jim's been here at the shop since 1984. So, he's really seen the shop for some changes. The shop is letterpress, and letterpress simply means letters are pressed onto paper with ink in between. This is Amber, and she's working here with this Vanderproof press. The process that we use, letterpress, is really old. Are any of you familiar with European credited with the invention of the printing press?
Gutenberg. Yeah. 1564?
Was that on the test?
No, it was on Jeopardy. What? No, I'm just kidding.
Just 100 years off.
Oh.
Yeah,
14?
Gutenberg, it's amazing how many Gutenberg, we credit with inventing the printing press of movable type in 1450, 15th century. We are an active, living link to that style of printing. We're doing it the same way Gutenberg is doing. Letter by letter. Take it over to a press and print it. The printed word changed the world. Courtney has some examples of type. This is type that we use in the shop. When we talk about type, we talk about the letters of the alphabet in different blocks. We have an antique archive of wood and metal type, carved images, and also a more modern photoplate process by more modern. Very modern for the shop. And we have these photo plates and type, and it stretches back well over. The shop was started by two brothers, Charles and Herbert Hatch. That's why it's called Hatch Show Print. A lot of people will look at these kind of posters and say that looks like a Hatch poster. It kind of becomes synonymous with the process. The shop is Hatch, as is the family name, the process is letterpress. Letterpress posters all look the same. We just stand out now because everyone has sort of moved on to more modern kinds of things. That's a great question. Is the Hatch family still involved? It's not. It was started by the two brothers, Charles and Herbert. Charles's son, Will T. Hatch, ran the shop from 1921 to 1952. When he died, the employees ran it for a while, and his nephew was involved in the late 1970s. So about 100 years in the Hatch family. Since 1992, the shop has been part of the Country Music Foundation. That's why we're here. The Country Music Foundation is made up of the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, a great museum, Studio B, where they did a lot of recordings, and Hatch Show Print. So those three properties make up the Country Music Foundation, a not-for-profit educational organization. Let me tell you a little bit about, we've been in this space since October. The shop has moved a little bit. In 135 years, we probably can't stay in the same spot in a burgeoning, growing city. This place was built especially for us. So we've got production where we make posters. We are so busy these days. Since I've been here the last 8 years, the shop has just been thriving. We do about 600 custom jobs per year. We use our archive to build those jobs. We ask the clients to just tell us what you want it to say. We'll build it from our archive, including the imagery.
And what's the production run?
100 is the minimum. You can quantity, you can have 1, 2, or 3 colors. So you send us your text, your quantity, your number of colors. We'll make a poster for you.
And what's the maximum?
We haven't hit it yet.
Do you design?
Sorry?
Do you design posters?
Not sign.
No,
Okay, you
design.
don't want to
Oh, design, yes. It has show print. Thank you, that's a great lead-in. It has show print. The designer is the printer, and the printer is the designer. We've got about 150 orders in line on any given day. Your order makes its way to the top of the list. It's handed to a designer, like Amber here, and she takes a look at the job, who the client is, all that stuff you need to do to design something for for someone. And then she does pencil sketches, figures out what she wants to, the design to look like, and starts building it. We are a non-digital shop. We're doing it essentially the same way Cooper did it, so that means we're not using computers.
Are the print,
Never share the stage with children, animals, or children.
I mean, you won't see the cast because they're eating. Know that the Hall of Fame really wanted to bring them along with it. So it's a lot of the
When we moved to the 360 Broadway, there was an erosion problem. The assistant manager said, that was Huey. When we moved here last October, what are we going to do? And we got Huey a little kitty cat friend about 8 years ago. So we have 2 cats running around the shop. So the designer will print your poster. They follow it from beginning to end. We're not, we don't have the division of labor where you have to put all the type away and you have to print and you have to print the press. One person does the whole job from beginning to end. So they follow it through. The wall of shelves at the back with us is the last 3 locations, as well as our neon sign on Broadway. As you come in, you can see it. That is also marked in 3 different locations. Good? Yep. Okay. This spot, let me just wrap it up here because there are a lot of you and you're going to get to print in the classroom. So we don't have enough time for all of you to go through and print poster equipment designed for you. I just wanted to mention we've been here since October. This is a new location for us. It's production. This retail store is now opening. That was like on cue. Retail store, cue! And then there's a gallery on the other side of the lobby there of all the large woodblock pieces in the collections. The 20s and 30s, 50s, heyday, Jim prints, all of those on that press in the back. It's a beautiful collection of prints. And then when we're going next, we have a classroom. So we can share the shopping community. And that's a first to have a classroom. So we're going to save questions for the end. So follow Courtney through retail, around that classroom. We'll print, and then we'll have time for lots of questions. Cram ourselves into that classroom. There for you, and then after you print, I'll be here to answer questions. We've got really groovy, cool stuff on the walls in here. You can take pictures of anything. We've got our store, so I'll turn it over to you, Courtney.
Okay. So you guys are going to be printing the 3rd color on a 3-color poster. When we print posters here, we print 1 piece of paper at a time, 1 color at a time. So I've already printed the first 2 colors for you. The first color that I printed was this blue. These are actually, you can see there's a bit of a texture on this background. These are actually pieces of type. These are all wooden letters. So these are E's and M's and H's that I flipped upside down to give it that texture. So we use our archive as much as we can, as creatively as we can. So that's one way we can use our archive in a different way. The next color that I printed was the silver. I've got these stars and then the Nashville skyline to commemorate your trip here. And then you guys will be printing in a dark, dark blue. And you will be printing with text on this. And this is what you'll be printing from. So with those cylinder presses, like you saw Amber working on, you load your type directly into the press bed. With a platen press like this guy, this is a turn of the 19th century press. It's a Zigwalt press, and it works a little bit differently. You pull this handle down, and this right here presses your paper into your type or your imagery, which I'll show you. You'll understand, you can see a little bit closer. What you do for this is line by line, you build your design and then you place it into a frame, which is this guy right here. It's called a chase. And that is what locks it all in nice and tight. Then you have these guys. These are called coins. And what they do is you turn this key and they expand, and that's what causes that tension and that pressure, and that's how nothing falls out of there. Now, when we pass that type around in production, you might have noticed on the back side of the A, for those of you who saw that one, there's a piece of paper. When you're working with antique type, over time, some of it gets a little bit worn down. All type is originally made to be the same height. It's 0.918 of an inch. It's said to be the height of an English shilling. But over time, some of it gets worn down and it's not printing at the same level as everything else. So what we'll have to do is bump up those letters. To do that, we'll put a piece of paper or tape on the back side, and that'll push that letter up just enough so that it's printing at the same level. Well, on the back side of this, you can see all the pieces of paper and tape that Kathy and I put on the back of this to get this ready to print. This guy actually, this press is a little bit finicky. So it took us a while to make ready for this poster. And just an example of how long the make ready process can take. This is all the paper that we went through to get this ready to take. And it took us about 4 hours to get this ready to print for you guys. So we were very excited that you're here at printing.
Please don't skip the printing part.
Please don't skip this. We worked very hard for you. So let me show you how this press works. What you do, you have this rotating disc right here. This is an inking disc or an inking plate, and you apply your ink directly to that. I have never done this standing so tall before, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully I don't fall and embarrass myself in front of you all. You just apply your ink directly to the inking plate. It doesn't take a whole lot of ink, but then you pull this handle down. When you pull the handle down, these rollers come up. They hit your inking disc. The inking disc rotates, and that's how you evenly distribute your ink. Now, another thing, every time I pull this handle down, the rollers come out, they distribute the ink, but they also pick up ink. And that is how your design, your chase, all of your type gets inked up. So, I'm going to slide my chase into the press, and when I pull this handle down, these rollers will pick up some ink, and then they'll roll a fresh coat of ink over my design. I take a piece of paper, I'm not going to use one of your fancy ones, and then I'm just going to slide it in here, it'll rest on these guides, and I'll help you line it up. But then you push down, and then you give it some really firm pressure. And then you guide that handle back up, and then you have your print. Yeah. So this is an oil-based printer's ink. So it's still going to be a little bit tacky once you're done, a little bit wet. So we have some paper bags for you. You guys can just slide it right in. It'll be totally fine. Kathy's done tons of test runs where she's just tried to demolish this guy, and it's been totally fine to dry the next day. So if you just don't put any pressure on top of it, tomorrow morning it'll be dry, and then you'll have a nice print. It's 8 by 10 conveniently if you want to frame it and keep it forever and pass it on to future generations. Yes. So
It is okay to slide the print directly into the bag
Yeah.
after you print it. I know it seems contraindicated, but it's fine, and that keeps it from smearing or getting under clothes. So
some people
you guys-
want to do this, but that's a little dangerous if you have a neighbor next to you.
So you guys will start printing one by one. I am available if you have questions about things in the classroom. The store is open as well, so kind of let you self-manage rotating that to print. So, questions? Photo plate, it's one of the plates in our collection, and this became very popular once television came out. And radio was no longer the medium for how you enjoyed your performers. So, and photography in the 50s became very popular with the public. So, the photo plate. And I'm just going to read this off the back so it makes sense. To create photo plates, a black and white photograph is rephotographed as a negative, reversed, and then reshot with a dot screen onto a chemically treated piece of copper or magnesium, and then they submerge that plate in a series of acid baths. The image appears, and you've got basically just an acid-etched image. Copper and magnesium is thin, and so they mount it to a piece of wood to make it type high, 0.918 of an inch. And so that's the photo plate process. They're extremely durable. You drop it into the press bed along with the rest of your type, and they'll print who knows, forever, we'll see. We've got a huge collection of photo plates.
So do you have all the original plates going back to years and years ago?
We do have a lot of original plates. That's why we're able to reprint this, for example, this 1956 Elvis Presley poster. It's the only poster that we can continue to print from Colonel Tom Parker's days. We did lots and lots of Elvis posters. But with a lot of our posters, especially if it's got someone's brand on it, like Grand Ole Opry, we need permission or we pay a royalty to be able to continue to reprint this. Name and likeness laws. It's a good thing we have them. So we can reprint it, we can set it up, we've got the same letters, we've got the same photo plates, we can set up all kinds of posters that were printed years and years ago because we have those materials, because we use our archive, including these early days of tent shows. This particular client, Silas Green from New Orleans, another one, Rabbit Foot Minstrels. These were variety tent shows in business from 1904 to 1957. It was a huge run for that old-fashioned tent show and minstrel shows. It lasted well into the 50s, which kind of, I think, shocks us originally Northerners, but is part of the Southern culture of the tent show. So, other questions?
On the ones like this one here where it's like a drawing of a person or a face or whatever. Is that all done by the one person as far as the artwork goes?
Yes, this was done by Will T. Hatch. Since they had the Silas Green client for so many years, and the show would change every year, they would carve blocks. That one on the end is a one sheet, and the pictures that you see on the wall show how they would have been applied to the sides of country stores or barns to advertise. Because Hatch managed to survive and people preserved these blocks, we still have them in the collection and can print with them. And the gallery shows a lot of these old blocks. So Will T. was an excellent carver. He was raised in the shop by his father and his uncle. So when his father died, it was so natural for him to take over the shop. Between 1920 and 1930, Will T.'s records, his handwritten logs, show that they carved 1,200 blocks as part of their poster making. They also would handset type and do business cards, stationery, theater tickets, anything printed they would print. But Will T. added this skilled carving to letterpress printing, setting the letterpress printer apart from everyone else because now you've got this really excellent skilled carver and staff. Will T. could carve directly in reverse onto a board.
Wow.
So this is an example of the two blocks that were used to make this one. The largest, by the turn of the century, the 20th century, all paper was advertising. So that block on the end is considered a one sheet. The largest piece of paper you could get was 30 by 40. So Will T. and his staff created these blocks that would fit exactly on one sheet, very efficient. The paper comes in, you can print it. This one sheet block is the standard by which everything is divided or multiplied in creating papers and half sheets. 16 of that size creates a billboard. This poster on the end of Roy Acuff is a 3-sheet put together. So you can see that block is just a portion of a larger design that was cut up. And the shop has so many pieces of carved blocks. Some of them, when they weren't needed anymore, were cut up and made into shelves. We were able to recover posters because they were hidden in the shelving. We have an advertisement for ice cream for 15 cents a pint that was put together. We discovered the Hoover for President block that was used for the 1932 election when he ran against FDR. So it's moving the shop has actually helped us find these treasures. So it's great that we have these hand-carved blocks within the collection. Other questions about the 135-year history of this little poster shop that could?
Do you guys ever go on the road to museums or have?
Yes, as a matter of fact, this board in the corner is left over from when the Smithsonian Institute took Hatch on the road as part of their traveling exhibition. It traveled for 8 years and was picked up by different art museums and universities. It started at EMP, Experience Music Project in Seattle, and it toured all over and came back home. So we've still got some pieces from that exhibit. Jim Sheridan, who we met, he started on the 4th Avenue location, and he moved the shop to 316 Broadway. This is our previous location, folks. This is how cramped. This is the whole shop was crammed into this small space on Broadway, which
And the gift
is
shop?
charming and great. Yes, and the gift shop was about this much room up front. So yes, we kind of exploded when we came here. Jim Sheridan, this was sort of his day of when he took over the shop. He saw a lot of things, a lot of potential, a lot of ways that the shop could come back. He started in 1984. Recording technology changed in the early 80s. We went to the compact disc, and the long boxes were created. The long boxes, you know, the CD's only that big. The long box was created so that record stores didn't have to change their shelving from the LP. Jim Sheridan carved all of these blocks to go with a 15-album series. When the CD came out, it's a way to re-release old music on a new technological advancement, but also you can introduce it to new audiences. When Jim Sheridan did this, he didn't create these to sell with it. He created it so they could put it on the box and use it for design. License the image. Now we've got a whole new vein of revenue to put our typeset imagery on all kinds of products and license the Hatch image. We're a design company, not just a poster shop. And Jim Sheridan really saw that in. You leverage the technology at the time, you reinvent yourself, but still Hatch stayed true to letterpress. It never changed. These are hand-carved blocks. Set up in the shop is the photo shoot. So the back of the background is the shop itself. So this was a great thing to happen, and Jim Sheridan took us back to Will T's days, where you're carving and not just using photo plates and typesetting.
You don't number your prints, though, do you?
We don't number them because they're coming, you'd have to hand number them. We can put limited edition. Sometimes for folks, we can put a space, a slash, and of 300. So you can take your poster order and you can number them one of them. We'll do the slash 300, but we're probably not going to go through it all.
You could number like 10200 or something like
If you were Taylor Swift, you could do that. No, anyone can do that. Other questions? So these artifacts kind of tell the timeline history of the shop, starting with its first job here, April 12th, 1879. Hatch typeset a job for a lecture by Henry Ward Beecher. Beecher, brother of Harriet Beecher Stowe. So that was Hatch's first job. Continuing through, Hatch has seen 2 world wars and a Great Depression. Still comes through that. In the 80s, Hatch did a lot of wrestling, professional wrestling posters, and these were televised and very popular. A lot of the archive, the photo plate archive, we have some great photo plates of country artists, but we have dozens and dozens and dozens of photo plates of all these wrestlers and their get-ups, and that's really fun to kind of look through the wrestling section. So Tojo Yamamoto and Nick Goulas, they ordered a lot of posters from Hatch. We've got Tojo Yamamoto's handwritten order form from 1981, I believe. 100 posters, $37.37. Today our posters are about $4 each,
Huh?
but you have to get 100.
Still, it's reasonable.
Other questions?
What size is $4 each? What size?
Any size.
Any size?
Yes, the Size doesn't matter at Hatch Show Print. Because we have to set everything up anyway. So the smallest size we'll do is a postcard. And then the largest is 14 by 22 because the Vandercook presses that we're using have that boundary as their press bed. So that's why people say, I can't find a frame for your posters. They're these weird sizes. Well, we're working on press beds, you know, not your digital screen. So.
When did the tie into the music industry really start? I mean, obviously being in Nashville, it makes it tie in pretty easily with country music. But.
Yes, the tie into the music business, I think it kind of was there all along. When Will T. took over the shop in 1921, he changed the name of the shop to Hatch Show Print because they did a lot of entertainment. But even when Charles and Herbert started it as CR and HH Hatch Printers, they did jobs for musicians traveling through. An industry grew up kind of around those carnival tent shows, and certainly in 1920 with that first initial radio broadcast, KDKA out of Pittsburgh, PA. In 1920, radio started. By 1925, the Grand Ole Opry, WSM, goes on air with a 50,000 watt signal. It reached 30 states on a clear night. It went up into Canada, down into Mexico. So in the 20s, people start listening to the Grand Ole Opry. They know these Opry stars. The Grand Ole Opry was in the Ryman Auditorium, directly across the street from Hatch Show Print. So the stars of the Grand Ole Opry got a lot of their posters done at Hatch. So certainly that musical connection was available. Before the Grand Ole Opry was in the Ryman, a lot of acts would come into the Ryman to perform. Well, Hatch did a lot of the printing for early film stars. Movies. The movie companies would send the posters partially done, some of the imagery would be done, and then have a local printer put the days and the times on it. So Hatch has always been involved in this industry that kind of grew up in this area.
And how far back does Nashville's tie to the music industry go, or music go?
Ooh. How far back does Nashville's tie to the music industry go? I think that one's beyond my scope of studying. I don't know how long Nashville's been a music town. I know that there are those variety tent shows that went through in the 1800s, the mid 1800s. But I can't honestly answer, and I can't BS my way through an answer. So.
You wouldn't have known the difference anyway.
Well,